Hi guys, welcome back and thanks for joining us for our second version of Wine and Review. Today we're going to be discussing episode 9 of the limited series The Outsider. And if you're tuning in for the first time, thank you, we appreciate it. We do have our first version of this, episode 8 review, on our page. Please check it out if you feel so inclined, if you like this one. We have to warn you guys, major spoilers. We don't do non-spoiler segments, so if you haven't watched episode 9 of the limited series of The Outsider on HBO, you're gonna want to skip this one. Come back when you have. Alright, first impressions.
First impressions, it was slow but entertaining. I think that's a really good way of putting it.
That's fair. I went into it thinking it was going to be more action-packed. It was going to be more more on the confrontation with El Cuco.
Right.
But we see a lot of lead-up in this episode to it, a large part of which consists of the history of the cave that El Cuco is hiding out at.
Which was really cool.
It was mildly cool. Honestly, I could have done without it. From a creative aspect, bravo, good job, that's awesome. But this has been so much of a slow burn already. I could have done without the history of the cave and why it is that nobody else in the town knows about the cave, which wasn't too convincing to me. If you watch the episode, you'll see that Seal, Claude's brother, explains that the only reason he knows about the bear cave and the detectives in that town don't and other people don't is because Seal and Claude, they had family who perished in the collapse of the cave when the search parties were sent out to look for the child of that character.
Right. And I mean, 70% of the episode was flashback. So I think it would have been okay if Seal was just explaining what had happened. Just like he did. Basically, at the end he did. But again, 70% of the episode was flashbacks as to what happened in that cave. Yeah,
I don't know if in the book Stephen King goes into more detail about what happens back then. I think it's set around the 1950s. But for the series, I just feel like we didn't need that. Now, I know I'm being critical here. Overall, though, please understand that I love this series. I think it's an amazing series, and I still think it's very well done. I just question certain choices, certain story choices, and this was one of them.
Yeah.
But we have it. Let's comment on it. I like how they separated present day from the flashbacks by using the color tones. The flashbacks had a more orange hue to them, whereas present day it's more dreary, more blues, more greens. When was the first moment you realized it was a flashback?
When you said something. He said something pretty early. I mean, I'm sure it would have caught on eventually if he didn't say anything before Seal decided to describe what was going on. But he caught on pretty quickly because he saw cars and it was over. He was like, oh, look at those, look at those old cars. I think this is a flashback. And I'm like, well, I mean, they live in the country. Maybe they just have really old cars.
Yeah, so there were a lot of hints. We've watched it 3 times since it aired before doing this video, and I didn't catch all the hints. That's for sure. The cuff pants, the coloring. I noticed the coloring was different, but that wasn't immediately what stood out to me and said that this is a flashback. The cars was the big hint. When they're in that parking lot, they're forming the search party. There were a lot of cars shown, and I was like, why are so many of them old-fashioned cars? Before that, when I first got my first clue was when the cost to explore the cave was 25 cents, and the 2 kids didn't have 25 cents. Present day, any kid is going to have access to 25 cents. They're going to be able to find 25 cents somewhere.
If they really want 25 cents, they're going to have 25 cents.
Yeah, but they didn't have that to explore the kid. That was my first clue. The ones I missed were the phone. The phone that the father called on after the cave. That is an old school phone, man. So yeah, by the time we got to that parking lot with all those cars, I was like, this is a flashback. when did you figure out it was a flashback? So they went in the cave before figuring out a flashback, right? Like you got to be thinking, oh shoot, they're gonna run into El Cuco. El Cuco's gonna eat these kids. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, because I mean that's like the first like opening scene that they show of the flashbacks.
Yeah.
Is these two kids are like sneaking in the back of a cave that we know as viewers that El Cuco's hiding out in a cave. So we're like, okay, he's starving. And these kids are basically like, hey, serve me up as a meal. Yeah,
I was like, oh, how freaking convenient for the bad guy, right? You know, to get a meal served up to him.
Right.
You know? And of course, sure enough, we find out it's a flashback. Right. This is what leads to them finding the cave via Seal.
And that's
because of his family history.
A perfect hideout for him because he loves misery. He loves feeding on that like that dread because so many people ended up dying under there. So he's just living in that like.
That's true. I didn't even think of that. You know, darkness. I was bashing that whole storyline, but you know it fits. You're right. He visits the graves of his victims. He sticks around town to feed on the agony of the family of the victims. So with that being a tomb,
essentially, yeah.
That is a great place for him to feed on misery.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he's weak. A good home for him.
Yeah. That's a great point. That actually totally escaped me. So that you know makes it a little bit more digestible. You know.
Yeah.
Now these last two, I think people were expecting something of just 2 episodes that are really fully high octane.
Right.
Whereas more of this episode was just still a lead up to the big confrontation at the end of it, and now we have a confrontation going into episode 10.
Oh, it better be a confrontation going into episode 10. It's the last one.
It's the last one, right? Okay, so after the the flashbacks, we have kind of everyone game planning, right? We have let's get Claude out of here because El Cuco can see and hear everything Claude sees and hears. Right. So let's get him out of here.
Claude's totally down for it. He's like,
he understands.
Crazy, so I'm like, whatever you need to do, I will go wherever you need to go. Like, take me wherever. Like, I don't care.
Let's talk a little bit about Claude's arc. He doesn't have a huge arc show-wise, but overall, knowing his past, he's had a major arc. We've had glimpses into his past. When he was first interviewed as part of the Terry Maitland investigation, we see that he's a former addict. He spent time in jail. Now at that point, he's cleaning up his life. He's a manager. It's a strip club manager, but hey, it's a legitimate job.
He's clean.
He's clean. Yeah. Okay. He's still struggling with addiction, but he has those daily reminders. And we never see him take part. We don't see him drink alcohol. We don't see him smoke weed.
Right.
Even though his brother does.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, his arc is amazing, and then in this episode, we hear about him spending time for basically assault and battery for the bar fight where Hari represented him 8 years ago. So now we see a person who has gone through hell and come back and is understanding that we need to do whatever it takes to defeat this thing. This is not about me or my ego or anything like that. It's about stopping this thing.
Right.
And we see Jack, who is another individual who's very troubled, but it's a completely different perspective.
Right. Who Jack didn't even really do drugs. Like, he does drink a lot now, but we don't even know if he
drinker
drank in the past.
He's a drinker, and we know he has an issue with drinking because it's alluded to before. It's alluded to at Kima's baby shower when Ralph asks him, hey, what's in the cup?
Right.
And then before that, he's at the strip club. He's drunk when he assaults that dude. Completely out of it, you know what I mean? So he obviously has a problem with drinking. His life has taken a couple left turns. He wanted to be a military man, didn't qualify. His wife recently left him. And obviously he's drowning his sorrows in the bottle. And we know he was abused by his mother. So, it's kind of like the opposite of Claude, the trajectory. Claude has been down here, and now he's building himself up, whereas Jack has been, just fighting through it his whole life. He's lived a rough life and grew up to be a very bitter individual, and I think the police force was, a natural destination for him because it allows him to assert the power over people that he didn't have over his own life, coming up.
Right.
And, you see him taking advantage of that, in the strip club with that patron. And then, El Cuco's able to feed on that. Yes, he took Claude's DNA, but we just see a different path. We see a divergence there between two troubled individuals with troubled lives, where we see where one can go by the way of Jack and the other can go by the way of Claude.
It's different personalities. You know what I mean? People are different. I mean, addiction's all the same, but people cope with it differently, I feel like. And
I think they've done that. They've showed that those different ways of coping brilliantly through Claude and Jack. Their trials and tribulations and where they're at now. So you really root for Claude. At least I know I am. I think he's a really great guy who's actually turned around, because how many times you watch something and you see a recovering addict and like they're faced with the first opportunity to fall off the wagon, and they do, but Claude is really like, he's past that. They're showing you that he's just a target, and he's one of these guys. He's one of the good guys. Right. His past is just his past. It's part of the story to inform you of who he is. It's not who he is now.
Right.
Yeah. So I thought that was great. That was awesome seeing that. It's awesome seeing him struggle with the fact that El Cuco is with him at all times. That was cool, even on the road trip with Howie to get the chicken.
I mean, that's a heavy weight on your shoulders,
Absolutely.
Especially, he makes it clear too. He's like, these people, they're here for me. Like, like, so on top of having the boogeyman basically haunting your entire life, trying to set you up for something that is just absolutely disastrous. You have 6, 7 people trying to defend you, save you, and save others. Like that's heavy.
That's huge.
That's huge. It's heavy.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the conversation between Ralph and Jeannie. Of course, Jeannie calls him. They have a talk about what the developments are down there, and he's trying to play it down naturally because he knows she's very worried. When she finds out that El Cuco is there and they're, kind of sticking around for this thing, she freaks out. She's backing out of a driveway, and she's not looking back.
Nobody would do this, but that's fine. That's fine.
It was a little jarring for us. It took us out of the immersion of the episode. Yeah. It's just, no one backs out of a driveway like that, no matter what kind of news they're getting.
Let's be 100% honest. She could even, she almost ran someone over. She could have been looking at least the other way, but looking behind her as she's backing out and just didn't see the person coming. No. She was literally like this. Going backwards.
Yeah, and she was doing that before she got the bad news. Even before she was going backwards, not looking, before she got the news that, hey, El Cuco's there and I'm not leaving. It's like, another thing she could have done is just stop the car.
Had the
just
conversation.
Stop, put it in park. Like, what the hell are you doing? That's what I would have done.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that was a little bit unrealistic. I think they just took a little bit too much liberty with that scene. Everything else, almost everything else, cinematically,
it was a tiny
directionally,
scene,
has been really good. So they had that conversation. Obviously, Jeannie's worried, but Ralph's not just gonna pack up and go back. El Cuco's here. He's here.
Right.
He gives her the whole line about we're just gonna contain this thing and then send in the cavalry. We as the viewer knew that wasn't gonna be the case. Yeah. We knew that it's like the people who have to deal with this are the people who believe this thing exists.
Right.
Period. You're not gonna send someone in blind. Police officer. What are you gonna tell them?
Hey, the boogeyman's in this cave. Can you come shoot it?
Right. So we knew that was the direction that we ended in, and it was very ominous, that conversation. Bye, I love you. You knew something was coming. I knew something was coming. I don't particularly know. Okay, that conversation happened, and for sure Ralph's gonna die, but. To me, that conversation signified it's the end of times for some people. They're going to war. Things are about to get real.
Yeah, I don't know if I felt the same. I felt it was like way overly casual. Like he was just too cool.
Oh
like,
yeah.
It was like as if like he hasn't talked to her all day, called her, gave her the phone one, and literally he was just like, love you.
Yeah, but that's vintage
Like
Ralph.
everyone says love you when they hang up the phone. It's nothing like alarming about that. You know what I mean?
But think about the journey we've been taking through with Ralph throughout this entire season. Sorry.
I guess. I
You
don't
know, Ralph is, you know, probably the most rational out of all of them. You know, maybe aside from Howie. He's the one that needs facts and evidence. He's the one that doesn't worry. He's the one that when his wife said someone was in the house, he was like, okay, I will appease you by, you know, looking, you know, to see if there's indentations and that, but I know this is a figment of your imagination. I know this is a bad dream. You know, Ralph is the one that's the most grounded individual in the show, I believe, you know? So I don't think he's worried. That's the thing. But I think the directors, I think the producers, I think they wanted to show, by showing her concern, he needs real concern. You know, I think they tried to do it with the over dramaticness of the car, you know, almost hitting somebody and her pleading with him to come home. And then, but Ralph, he's always the calm, collected, like, listen, it's going to be fine. That's his MO. It's going to be all right. It's going to be cool, you know? So when he said, you know, bye, I love you, yeah, for him, it was totally casual, for sure. But me as the viewer, I took it as foreshadowing. I took it as the director is saying, hey, this is an important, pivotal conversation between two people who love each other, who do not know this may be the last time they speak to each other. They have no idea. Because how many people, you know, leave home, you know, and it's their last time, and they have no idea. You know, they get into a car accident, something happens, bye, I love you, you know? I think about this all the time between me and I. You know, sometimes we have an argument or something, this and that. And then, you know, I calm down. And I'm like, man, you know, I didn't even say bye. I didn't even say I love you. You know, she might not come back. So I think that's like what really hit me. You know, It was like, oh man, whew, something's going down. Bye, I love you. Because how many times in the show did they have that
I don't know.
a moment like that?
I guess.
You know?
I don't know.
No, you don't have to agree.
It just didn't stick out to me.
You don't have to agree. It's just that was just my
Right.
you know, but like, the vibes I got, you know, and so I was like, I prepared myself. I was like, oh man, please, Ralph, man, don't go out on me, not today. But of course, obviously, we lose our guy Alec Pelly.
Yeah.
Now, before we get into that too much, you know, there's some events leading up to that. Number one, the main one being freaking Seal, man. What is his issue?
He's just stupid.
He's stubborn as hell, for sure.
He just, yeah.
But
he lives
doesn't
in a bubble.
strike me as stupid. It's more of defiance.
Yeah.
And that's what really irks me.
I think he just lives in a bubble, too, where it's hard to step outside that bubble.
But he's in the bubble of El Cuco. He believes this thing exists. That's not
in his
question.
mind, he don't give a shit.
You know? But he's like, he refuses to heed the warnings of the crew. You know, you can't warn your brother. It's not that we don't care about his safety. It's that if you tell him, it puts him in even more danger. But he doesn't understand that. And even his own brother, like you said, Claude, he understands this. But Seal does not. That was maddening for me. And I don't know how convinced I was that, you know, in real life, someone's brother, you know, would handle that situation that way. What do you think?
I personally think there are people out there that would do something so stupid like that. But I don't know. I see all kinds of walks of life, and you see that more often than not.
True. But, you know, how unlucky are they to run into one, right?
I mean, he comes from a small town, right? So at least Claude left this small town out of a comfort zone. But his brother didn't. Like, he lives in this small town. He knows what he knows. He's stubborn with what he knows. And he's just like, I don't care what you say. Like, I think my brother should know. I'm going to tell my brother. And that was just it. And I think Claude is a little more down to earth because he took that leap. He was outside of that bubble for a little while and became a different person, clearly. You know what I mean? So it just shows the different dynamics between the two brothers.
Yeah, yeah. It's so sad. It's unfortunate. Alec was one of my favorite characters. Like, low key, you know what I mean? I thought Alec was a more than competent private investigator. You know, for those that don't know, he's a retired state trooper. He's a former state trooper. He's now a private investigator who primarily works for Howie, the lawyer. And I liked him from the get-go. From the moment Howie sent him out to investigate over at the Babcock Hotel, you know, he was thorough, and he was articulate in the way he went about it. And, you know, he felt bad about not going down because he felt fear. He felt genuine fear about not going down there, but he went anyway. And, you know, he paid with it. He paid for it with his life. And, but, you know, that's what a soldier does. He's not just a former state trooper. He's a former Marine, I think. And, you know, he laid his life on the line. And, you know, I had hopes that he would be the one or one of the ones who took down Jack, you know. But obviously we see that's not happening. And, you know, I think, I want to say it's kind of like a homage to him or a compliment that Jack took him out first, because maybe he saw him as one of the bigger threats.
Maybe.
What do you think?
Maybe. Sounds
You know,
about right, yeah.
Former army man, you know, former military man, and, you know, he was ready he understood that, you know, we got to kill this thing before it kills us. He had the mindset of going to war, whereas I don't know about
I
the
really
other
hope
guys.
they all kind of thought we need to kill this thing before it kills us.
Well, you know, Holly was talking about containment.
I don't know, Holly, yeah, on that statement, she was on some other level.
Sablo was talking about, like, I don't know if this thing could be killed. You know, of course, Ralph, you know, knows in his mind that it can be killed because he, like he said, it walks, it talks, it needs to eat, just the same stuff. But we saw Sablo having some doubts whether or not it could be killed. And, you know, you got to think maybe, even though Ralph seemed confident initially in saying that, you got to figure, hey, you know, he's been the most reserved about, you know, this whole thing in the first place. Like, maybe he doesn't know if it can be killed. You know, maybe he's just sharing his expert opinion. But at the end of the day, well, you know, he doesn't know. You know, so rest in peace, Alec Pelly. I thought his character was well done. I thought the actor did an amazing job. I really liked him. You know, I was really gutted when you know when we lost him. I thought we were gonna lose Andy. I thought when he kissed Holly in the car, I thought Jack was gonna blow his brains out there. But you know, it wouldn't have made sense because I think Jack is smart. I think he's using his smart. I think he's using his instincts to take out the harder targets. So if he was gonna take out someone in the car, I think he would have taken out Holly.
Even though he still has a conscience,
Andy.
and he shows that many times, so I don't know.
I think we're at a point where his conscience is gone. I think
He's
Kuko has full
beaten
control.
down.
I think so. Yeah, I think he's been beaten into full submission. I mean, I think he's killing now without conscience. Right. I mean, he killed the other guy, the feed to El Cuco, the fisherman,
which he did feel some regret about. It showed that.
And now, you know, he's at war. He took out Alec Pelly, who to me, I feel was the biggest threat to him at the outset. So if you were going to take anyone out in that car, I don't think it would have been Andy. I think it would have been Holly. So I don't think it would have made sense in hindsight. So I guess now it's just a matter of, we're not going to talk about any previews. You know, we understand there's some people who don't want spoilers from the preview and things like that, but we're gonna go in and talk about our predictions from the next episode, which, you know, spoiler alert, may have been influenced by us watching the previews, but we're explicitly not going to talk about the preview. We know Jack fires about 8 shots. He fires the first shot. We see him take out Alec, and it goes to black, and we hear about 7 more shots. What do you think happens?
I don't know, cause like I can't tell with the preview.
Right.
I don't know. All my predictions are just based on what I saw in the previews.
Okay, fair enough. Me, given Jack's background, I think they go through some pains to let us know that Jack is a bad mamma jamma. You know, he's an expert marksman. And one thing, you know, if you've seen one sniper movie, you've seen them all, pretty much. You know, it's basically one shot, one kill. That's the MO for a sniper. You know, so if you're as good as Jack is made out to be in this series by Ralph, you know, Ralph was shaken. You could tell he was shaken when he was telling Holly about Jack's expertise with a gun. You have to assume that, you know, yeah, he may not have gotten all of them, but he has to have gotten more than just Alec if he shot 7 or 8 shots, you know, one after another in rapid succession, where he had them as sitting ducks. They pulled up not expecting this. They had no idea. They thought, you know, we're going to pull up, we're going to go into this cave, and we're going to do some searching. They had no idea they were going to have an expert marksman waiting for them. So they were sitting ducks. You have to imagine he was able to get more than just Alec, especially with those 7 shots. So my expectation is that we're going to see more casualties to open up the next episode. Who? I can't really say. You know, it's anybody's guess. He looked like he was setting up his marks. He started on the right side. He started with Holly and Andy, and ended up with his far left was Alec. Right next to him was Ralph. Right next to Ralph was Eunice. So you would think he would just go in that order: Alec, Ralph, Eunice. Who knows? I don't know. You know, we see Claude getting in the car with Howie and Seal to catch up. Do they catch up during this part? Do they catch up during the shooting? Who knows? Are they are they part of that? Does he shoot out the engine block? I don't know.
I mean, you do see Ralph alive after the second shot, so you know he didn't go in order. Like, he's staring still at Alec when the second shot goes off, and then he kind of like just moves around.
So you hear 2 shots before it fades to black?
Yes, 2 shots. And it's on Ralph, and Ralph's emotion of what's going on, and he's just like, what is happening?
So, you know, maybe, you know, headed back to that, you know, that struggle that he's having, maybe his history with Ralph prevents him from taking out Ralph next after Alec. But, you know, we know Ralph was next in the line of succession. So, you know, we'll just have to wait and see until episode 10. I got to tell you, I'm excited. I'm beyond excited. I'm so ready for the conclusion of this thing. Yeah. You know? Anything else to add?
No, I think it was pretty well detailed.
That's it, guys. I'm so ready for episode 10. I know you guys have to be as well. Let us know what you think. Please, please, please talk to us. Let us know your prediction for the next episode. Who dies? Who doesn't die? Be careful of your comments. Don't have them be too swirly. You know, if you read the books or saw the preview for the next episode. Let's give it an opportunity for the people who don't watch the previews for next week or read the book to, you know, to avoid those kind of spoilers. Yeah. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. We love talking about our favorite shows. We hope you enjoy this, and we'll talk soon. Can't wait to hear from you guys, and can't wait for episode 10.
Yes. Ciao, guys.
Take care. Bye, guys.